5 reasons why you avoid being around people. Have you ever entered a crowded room, surrounded by people talking and laughing, and felt like the walls were closing in on you? The noise, the chatter, the constant need to interact, it all starts to feel like too much. It's not that you dislike people. In fact, you might even care deeply about them. But sometimes, being around others feels draining. There's an unspoken weight to the social atmosphere that can make you want to escape, to find a quiet corner where you can breathe. You might feel like you're the only one who feels this way, like everyone else thrives in social settings, while you're just trying to keep your energy up. But the truth is, you're not alone. Many people experience this feeling, and it's not something to be ashamed of. It's not a flaw in your character or a sign of weakness. It's a part of who you are, your personality, your preferences, and your needs. So why is it that sometimes being around others feels like such a drain? Why does the idea of socializing feel like an overwhelming task instead of an opportunity for connection? In this video, we'll explore the 5 main reasons why being around people can feel exhausting and why it's okay to embrace these feelings. Understanding why you feel this way can help you navigate the modern world and honor your need for space without feeling guilty. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more motivational content that can help lift your spirit and make you feel more empowered. Now, let's dive into the 5 reasons why you avoid being around people. 1. You are an introvert. Let's start with one of the most common reasons many of us prefer solitude, being an introvert. Now, you might have heard this term before, but what does it really mean to be an introvert? In the world of socializing, introverts often feel like they're swimming against the current. Unlike extroverts, who feel energized by social interactions, introverts find themselves drained after spending time in large groups or noisy environments. You might even feel that same heaviness when everyone is talking at once or when the crowd feels too overwhelming. But here's the thing. Stoics have a very interesting perspective on this. Epictetus once said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." This same idea can be applied to our social lives. It's not about needing to surround ourselves with people to feel validated or fulfilled. Instead, it's about recognizing that peace comes from within, and sometimes that peace can only be found in solitude. Introverts thrive when they have time to think, reflect, and recharge. They need time alone to reconnect with themselves and their thoughts. This is not a weakness or something to be ashamed of. In fact, it's a strength. When you embrace the calmness of solitude, you can connect more deeply with your own thoughts, ideas, and purpose. Think about the Stoics. Seneca, one of the great Roman Stoic philosophers, spent much of his life alone, reflecting, writing, and contemplating life's deeper truths. He understood that true wisdom often arises in moments of solitude, away from the distractions of society. By being alone, you allow yourself to connect with your inner thoughts without external interference. But here's where it gets tricky. In a world that celebrates constant social interaction and activity, it can sometimes feel like you're doing something wrong by preferring solitude. Society tells us that being alone means you're lonely or antisocial. But this is where self-awareness comes into play. As a Stoic, it's important to understand and accept your own needs without guilt. Being around too many people, especially in chaotic or noisy environments, can be draining for introverts. It's like trying to fill a cup that's already overflowing. There's no space to receive more. This is why you might find large gatherings or parties exhausting. You have to perform, smile, laugh, make conversation, even when your internal reserves of energy are running low. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius also understood the importance of solitude. In his meditations he wrote, "Keep yourself simple, good, pure, unpretentious, a friend of justice, God-fearing, kind, full of affection, strong for your proper work." Being an introvert doesn't mean you are avoiding your responsibilities. It simply means that you need quiet time to nurture yourself. You don't have to be constantly surrounded by people to be a virtuous, wise, or fulfilled person. What you need is balance. Let's take a moment to think about the moments when you felt most at peace. Perhaps they were when you were alone, reading a book, writing in a journal, or simply walking in nature. These moments are not empty or wasted. They are full of value. They allow you to recharge, reflect, and grow. Introverts have an incredible ability to look inward, to reflect on their actions, and to grow in ways that others might not. So when you feel overwhelmed by a room full of people, remember that it's okay to step away. It's okay to take a break and honor your need for peace. In the Stoic world, this ability to seek solitude and quiet when needed is not seen as a flaw, but as a form of self-care. When we honor our true nature, whether we are introverted or extroverted, we align ourselves with the natural flow of life, just as Stoicism teaches us to do. Recognize your inner strength and embrace the moments of solitude that allow you to connect more deeply with yourself. By understanding that you are an introvert and embracing this part of your personality, you can live in a way that honors both your need for peace and your need for connection. You don't have to force yourself to be someone you're not. Embrace your unique nature and use it to build a life of meaning and inner calm. 2. You need personal space. You know that feeling when you've been around people for hours and suddenly you just need to get away? It's like a wave of frustration or discomfort hits you, and all you can think about is how badly you need to retreat into your own space. This need for personal space is not just a preference, it's a fundamental need that each of us has to feel whole again. In fact, in the world of Stoicism, the concept of personal space goes hand in hand with the idea of self-care, reflection, and finding peace within ourselves. Imagine this. You've had a long day at work. Your mind is racing with thoughts, and the last thing you want is to walk into a noisy room full of people, each one pulling you in 100 different directions. It's exhausting. You feel drained, like your energy is slipping away, and you just can't take anymore. This is because personal space is essential for maintaining mental balance. The constant demand for social interaction can feel like an invasion of that space, and when that happens, frustration sets in. It's like your mind has no room to breathe. The Stoics understood this idea of needing space to reflect and recharge. Seneca, in his letters, often spoke about the importance of withdrawing from society to restore your peace of mind. He didn't see this as avoidance. Rather, it was a way to reconnect with your true self and strengthen your inner calm. He believed that mental clarity and the ability to think deeply come from moments of quiet and solitude. But in today's world, finding space for yourself is becoming increasingly difficult. We are constantly connected, phones ringing, messages popping up, people demanding our attention. The more we interact with others, the more we risk losing touch with our inner selves. We are social creatures, and it's natural to crave connection. But we are also individuals, and as individuals, we need time to center ourselves, reflect on our thoughts, and rejuvenate our mental energy. When we're deprived of personal space, we can feel overwhelmed, agitated, and disconnected from our own thoughts. Think of your mind like a cluttered room. When you constantly fill it with noise and distractions, it becomes difficult to think clearly, to find any sense of order. Your personal space acts like a sanctuary where you can tidy up that mental clutter. Without it, your thoughts get lost, your emotions get tangled, and your energy gets drained. What's even more important is that personal space is not just about being alone. It's about the freedom to choose when and where to engage with others. It's about the ability to step away from the demands of the world and recharge on your own terms. Stoic wisdom teaches us that we should be in control of our time and energy, and that sometimes the best way to stay grounded is by giving ourselves the room to breathe. When you step back and take time for yourself, you begin to understand the deeper truth behind the Stoic teaching that says, the greatest wealth is to live content with little. This little space, this little moment of freedom becomes your sanctuary. And the more you allow yourself to create that space, the more you begin to honor your own boundaries. It's not selfish to need time alone. It's an act of self-preservation. In fact, when you think about it, the Stoics didn't isolate themselves from society for the sake of loneliness. They did it to become stronger, more mindful, and more in control of their emotions. They recognized that in order to deal with the world, you first had to know yourself. And knowing yourself means having the space to reflect, to pause, and to process the events of your life. Think about those times when you've taken a step back and found that quiet place. Maybe it's in the comfort of your own room, in the calm of nature, or even in a peaceful cafe corner. In those moments, you can hear your thoughts clearly. You can process the noise that life throws at you and emerge feeling more centered and grounded. These moments of solitude aren't just breaks. They are essential for your well-being, and the more you embrace this need for personal space, the better you'll feel. But there's a catch. Society, in all its fast-paced, socially driven frenzy, often views a desire for personal space as a form of isolation or avoidance. People might ask, why do you need to be alone? What's wrong? They don't understand that this desire for space isn't a rejection of others. It's a way of preserving your peace. By honoring your own needs for space, you give yourself the ability to engage with the world more meaningfully when you choose to. Take a moment to reflect. When was the last time you felt overwhelmed or frustrated by a social situation? Likely, it was because you didn't have the space you needed to recharge and regain your sense of balance. Constantly being on in social situations can lead to burnout. Personal space isn't just about being physically alone. It's about having the freedom to step back from the demands of others and reconnect with what truly matters to you. This is where the beauty of Stoicism shines. The Stoics didn't expect themselves to be constantly engaged with the world around them. They understood that to lead a good life, one must first master their own mind. They recognized that solitude isn't a luxury. It's a necessity for maintaining control over one's thoughts, emotions, and actions. Imagine if every time you felt the need for personal space, you listened to that inner voice. Instead of pushing yourself into uncomfortable social situations, you gave yourself permission to step back, to breathe, and to recharge. This is Stoic wisdom in action, the art of living in harmony with your own needs, without the pressure to conform to the expectations of others. By setting boundaries and respecting your own need for personal space, you create a life that's not just about pleasing others, but about honoring your own sense of well-being. It's about finding that balance between connection and solitude, between social interaction and inner peace. When you learn to embrace the importance of personal space, you free yourself from the cycle of constant external demands. You make room for clarity and growth. And as the Stoics teach us, by focusing on what we can control, our own thoughts, emotions, and actions, we can navigate the world with more wisdom, peace, and strength. So, the next time you feel the urge to retreat into your own space, don't feel guilty. Don't apologize for needing to recharge. You're not avoiding the world. You're preparing yourself to engage with it more fully. Personal space isn't just a need, it's a tool for creating a life of balance and wisdom. By respecting your need for personal space, you can create a world where you are more aligned with your true self and your inner peace. It's not about running away from life. It's about recharging so that you can live life on your own terms, with strength, clarity, and purpose. 3. You struggle with small talk. Have you ever found yourself trapped in a conversation where the words seem to just float in the air without any real meaning? It's like you're participating in a ritual you don't quite understand, and every sentence feels hollow. The weather, the latest TV show, casual pleasantries about things that don't matter. Small talk is something we're all forced to engage in, but for many, it can feel incredibly draining and frustrating. In fact, for those who value depth, these surface-level interactions can feel like a disconnect from the very essence of meaningful human connection. The Stoics would likely agree with this feeling. For them, conversation was never about filling the air with empty words. They believed in the power of meaningful discourse, conversations that nurture the mind, strengthen relationships, and encourage growth. The idea of small talk, where no real ideas are exchanged, goes against the very essence of what Stoics valued in human interaction. They didn't engage in conversations simply to pass the time. They engaged to reflect, to learn, and to grow. Consider the Stoic philosopher Epictetus, who placed a high value on the quality of one's thoughts and conversations. He believed that words should not be used casually, but rather as a tool for understanding and truth. For Epictetus, the pursuit of wisdom required that we focus on meaningful dialogue, the kind that pushes us to think critically, understand deeply, and connect with others on a genuine level. In his view, superficial chatter was not only a waste of time but also a hindrance to real growth. Imagine walking into a room full of people, and all you hear are comments about the latest celebrity gossip or fleeting opinions about trivial matters. You might find yourself questioning, why am I even here? What's the point of all this? Small talk, with its repetitive questions and predictable answers, feels empty. It doesn't nourish the soul or foster connection. It's a performance of social norms, rather than a real exchange of ideas or emotions. It doesn't allow you to connect on a deeper level, to share something real about yourself, or to understand someone else more profoundly. For many people, this need for deeper connection is natural. You long to speak about things that matter, the thoughts that shape your worldview, the challenges that stretch your mind, the passions that fuel your soul. And when you're faced with shallow conversation, it can feel like an invisible wall is separating you from others. You're trying to reach out, but the responses you get are more like distractions, bouncing off the surface rather than diving into the heart of the matter. The Stoics valued authenticity in all things, including their conversations. For them, a simple exchange could carry more weight than hours of empty chatter. As Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers, said, "Wasting time on trivialities is the enemy of a meaningful life." In his daily writings, Marcus often reflected on the nature of human relationships and emphasized the need to engage in dialogue that was not only respectful, but insightful. He believed that when we engage in small talk, we're often avoiding the things that truly matter, the inner struggles, the deep reflections, and the philosophical questions that define the human experience. It's not just that small talk is uninteresting, it's that it doesn't allow us to show up as our authentic selves. It forces us into a mold, requiring us to perform social scripts instead of engaging with people on a genuine level. The Stoics believed in cultivating a life of virtue, of living in alignment with your true self. And that requires real conversations, not just the "how are you" exchanges that go no deeper than the surface. If you've ever found yourself avoiding these interactions or feeling exhausted after engaging in them, it's likely because you understand the truth. Small talk doesn't nurture your soul. It doesn't help you grow. The Stoic approach to human interaction is simple but profound. Engage with intention. When we speak, our words should have meaning. They should not just fill the space, but rather invite reflection and understanding. The aim of any conversation should be to build something real, whether it's mutual respect, shared insights, or a deeper connection. If you prefer meaningful conversations, it's because you crave a connection that's grounded in authenticity, one that helps you understand the world and yourself more clearly. But that doesn't mean small talk doesn't serve its purpose. It has its place, especially in social situations where deeper conversations are not feasible or appropriate. For instance, the Stoics understood that acceptance and patience were key virtues. They knew that engaging in small talk was sometimes necessary to navigate the complexities of life and social expectations. Seneca, in particular, taught that we must accept the limitations of the world around us, including the need for light conversation. However, he also urged us to be aware of when such interactions begin to drain our energy and divert us from more important pursuits. The question then becomes, how can we engage in social situations without losing our sense of self or sacrificing the need for depth? The answer lies in balance. The Stoic mindset encourages us to be aware of our surroundings, to be present in the moment, and to focus on what we can control. If small talk is necessary, engage with it with purpose. Approach it as a tool, not a trap. Use it as a way to understand others, to practice patience, and to maintain your composure, even if the conversation is superficial. Don't let it drain you. Instead, see it as an opportunity to practice virtue in action, remaining true to your values, even when the conversation isn't aligning with your deeper interests. It's also important to recognize that your discomfort with small talk is not a flaw. In fact, it's a sign that you value substance over superficiality, which is a crucial Stoic trait. The Stoics believed in living a life of purpose, and that includes cultivating relationships that align with that purpose. If you find small talk draining, Perhaps it's because you're seeking conversations that are aligned with your values, that challenge you, inspire you, and push you to grow. This desire for depth is an important part of who you are, and it's worth nurturing. So the next time you find yourself stuck in a conversation that feels empty, remember, it's okay to feel frustrated, but don't let it define you. Instead, use the wisdom of the Stoics to stay grounded. Recognize that your craving for meaningful communication is not just a personal preference, it's a reflection of a deeper desire to live a life of purpose and virtue. And even in small talk, there's room to practice patience, understanding, and authenticity. Ultimately, the Stoics believed that our greatest power lies not in our ability to change others, but in our ability to remain true to ourselves, even when the world around us seems content with the superficial. 4. Social anxiety. Social anxiety is a complex and often misunderstood feeling. For those who experience it, being in social situations can be overwhelming and exhausting. The mere thought of interacting with others may trigger feelings of unease, discomfort, and fear. It's not just about being shy or introverted. Social anxiety is a deep-seated fear of judgment, of not fitting in, of being misunderstood. These fears create a barrier between the individual and the world around them, causing them to retreat into their inner world, avoiding situations where they might feel exposed or vulnerable. The Stoics believed that we cannot control what others think of us, and that trying to do so is an exercise in futility. They emphasized focusing on what is within our control: our thoughts, our actions, and our reactions. According to Stoic philosophy, it is natural to fear judgment, but we must learn to accept that other people's opinions are beyond our control. What matters most is how we view ourselves and how we live according to our values. Social anxiety often arises from an overemphasis on the perception of others, and the Stoics would remind us that we should only seek approval from within. In many ways, the Stoics argued that we have the power to free ourselves from the grip of social anxiety by focusing inward on our character and our virtue, rather than on the judgments of others. Seneca, one of the most well-known Stoics, wrote extensively about the importance of living authentically and practicing self-control. He believed that by controlling our own behavior, we could stop letting the judgments of others have power over us. When we live in accordance with our own principles, we become less concerned with how others perceive us. The constant worry about fitting in, saying the wrong thing, or not meeting social expectations is exhausting. In social situations, the mind can race with thoughts of, what if they don't like me? Or what if I say something embarrassing? These fears are amplified by our tendency to overanalyze our actions, replaying interactions in our minds long after they've ended. For the Stoics, this overthinking is a form of mental clutter that clouds judgment and peace of mind. They taught that we must learn to let go of these thoughts, to practice mindfulness in our interactions, and to trust that we are enough just as we are. One of the core Stoic teachings is the idea of accepting the present moment without judgment. When we face social anxiety, it's easy to get caught up in past mistakes or future worries. We may replay an awkward conversation from earlier or worry about how we'll be perceived in an upcoming event. The Stoics, however, encouraged us to focus on what we can control in the present moment, rather than dwelling on what is beyond our reach. They believed that our ability to respond wisely to any situation was within our power, and this response could determine our experience, regardless of how others behave. A key aspect of overcoming social anxiety is reframing our thoughts about what it means to interact with others. Instead of viewing socializing as a performance, a test where we have to prove ourselves, try thinking of it as an opportunity to learn and grow. In any social situation, we can practice virtue by being kind, present, and respectful. When we let go of the need to impress or gain approval, we take the pressure off ourselves. The Stoics believed that if we act in accordance with our virtues, we can walk through the world with confidence, regardless of the judgments of others. Social anxiety often stems from a feeling of disconnection from others, a fear that we don't belong. But the Stoics viewed human connection in a different light. They believed that our primary connection should not be with others' approval, but with our own nature and the universal reason that guides all of us. Marcus Aurelius, in his writings, often reminded himself that other people are part of the same human family as he is. By embracing the idea that we are all connected in this way, social anxiety can be alleviated, as we begin to see others not as potential sources of judgment, but as fellow travelers on the journey of life. A Stoic approach to social anxiety also involves preparation and practice. It's not about trying to be perfect or flawless in social situations, but about being present and learning from each experience. Every interaction, no matter how uncomfortable, offers an opportunity for growth. Stoicism teaches us that we should not shy away from challenges. Instead, we should embrace them as chances to practice self-mastery and resilience. By gradually facing social situations with a sense of calm, instead of avoiding them altogether, it's important to understand that social anxiety isn't something to be ashamed of. It's simply a challenge to overcome. The Stoics believed that challenges and obstacles were not things to fear, but opportunities to exercise our virtue. Fear, according to Stoicism, is not something to avoid, but something to be examined. What are we afraid of, really? And are those fears grounded in reality, or are they simply the product of our imagination and overthinking? Stoicism teaches us to question our fears, to face them head-on, and to understand that they are not the enemy. They are simply part of the human experience. The practice of self-reflection can also help those who struggle with social anxiety. The Stoics believed that we should constantly evaluate our thoughts and actions, and this includes examining why we feel anxious in social situations. By identifying the root cause of our fears, whether it's a fear of judgment, a lack of self-worth, or past experiences, we can begin to address them directly. The Stoics emphasize that the path to peace and freedom is through understanding and accepting ourselves fully. Finally, remember that overcoming social anxiety is a gradual process. Just like any other aspect of life, it takes time to develop the mental strength and resilience to face your fears. The Stoics were masters of patience and understood that personal growth is not instantaneous. It requires consistent effort and a deep understanding of one's own mind. The journey toward overcoming social anxiety is much like the Stoic journey toward wisdom. It requires perseverance, self-compassion, and a commitment to growth. Social anxiety may feel like a barrier that prevents us from fully participating in social life, but the Stoic approach can provide us with a powerful framework for overcoming it. By focusing on what we can control, practicing virtue in our interactions, and embracing the opportunity for growth, we can learn to navigate social situations with confidence. As the Stoics teach, we are not defined by our fears, but by how we choose to respond to them. And with each step, we become more resilient, more centered, and more at peace with ourselves. 5. You're sensitive to energy. The concept of energy might seem abstract at first, but for many people, it's an undeniable reality. Imagine entering a crowded room where the noise is overwhelming, the atmosphere feels heavy, and the conversations seem charged with tension or excitement. You might feel an almost immediate sense of discomfort, as though the energy in the room is too much to handle. For some, these sensations can lead to feeling drained, uneasy, or even physically tired after being around others, especially in chaotic or intense environments. This sensitivity to energy is not just about the physical environment, but about how the emotions and moods of others affect our own state of being. In Stoic philosophy, the concept of energy and external influences on our well-being is recognized, but the Stoics believe that how we respond to these external forces is within our control. Epictetus famously said, "We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them." This is where the Stoic approach can be particularly empowering for those who feel sensitive to the energy around them. While we may not be able to control the intensity or dynamics of a room, we have the power to regulate our internal state and choose how we allow these external forces to affect us. At the core of this Stoic perspective is the idea of detachment. The Stoics believed that our inner peace and tranquility should not be dependent on external circumstances. Whether surrounded by the energy of a bustling crowd or in a quiet, peaceful room, the Stoics taught that we must cultivate an inner strength that allows us to remain undisturbed by external events. This doesn't mean we become immune to our surroundings, but rather that we develop the ability to detach from the emotional and energetic pull of external situations. Through this detachment, we can remain calm and centered, regardless of how others are feeling. Those who are sensitive to energy often find that certain environments, whether they're emotionally charged, loud, or tense, can drain their vitality. In these situations, it may feel as though the collective emotions and moods of the group are absorbed by you, leaving you feeling depleted. The Stoics believed that we must focus on what is within our control and practice self-mastery. In the face of overwhelming energy, it is essential to recognize that we have the power to choose how we react. We can choose not to take on the emotional weight of others. By practicing mindfulness and self-awareness, we can cultivate the strength to protect our own energy and maintain our internal peace. In order to understand and manage this sensitivity, the Stoics would encourage us to engage in self-reflection. What is it about the energy of a room that affects you? Is it the tension of the situation, the emotional intensity of others, or the overwhelming noise that drains your energy? Understanding the source of this sensitivity allows you to build strategies to deal with it. One Stoic practice is to develop mental fortitude, which involves recognizing that you are not a passive participant in your environment. You are an active agent who can control how you engage with your surroundings. When we realize that we have control over our thoughts and reactions, we begin to view external energy not as a threat, but as an opportunity to practice inner calm. Another Stoic approach is to practice presence. The Stoics emphasized living fully in the present moment and engaging with life as it comes, without allowing distractions or external pressures to pull us away from our own inner state. When surrounded by intense or draining energy, focus on the here and now. Engage with your breath, observe the sensations in your body, and bring your attention back to the present moment. This simple act of mindfulness can serve as a powerful tool to disconnect from the overwhelming emotions and energies around you. It allows you to regain a sense of balance and to reclaim your energy by focusing on what truly matters, the present moment. In addition, it is important to recognize that your sensitivity to energy is not a flaw, but rather a unique characteristic that can be cultivated and managed. The Stoics believed in accepting our nature, including our strengths and weaknesses. If you find that certain energies drain you, this is simply an aspect of your temperament, and it is something you can work with, not against. By practicing self-awareness and acknowledging your sensitivity, you can develop ways to manage it, rather than let it overwhelm you. The Stoic wisdom here is that the goal is not to avoid these situations, but to practice fortitude and adaptability in the face of them. By building resilience, you can create a buffer between yourself and the energy of others. One effective Stoic practice for dealing with sensitive energy is the idea of focusing on virtue. According to the Stoics, true happiness comes not from external circumstances, but from living virtuously through wisdom, courage, justice, and self-control. When surrounded by overwhelming energy, instead of focusing on the noise, the tension, or the chaotic emotions, focus on your own virtuous response. Ask yourself, how can I act with kindness and understanding in this situation? What is the right thing to do here? By focusing on virtue, you shift the energy back to what you can control, your actions and responses, and let go of the emotional impact of the situation. Additionally, the Stoics practiced austerity, which means recognizing that we don't need to be constantly surrounded by external stimuli in order to feel fulfilled. By cultivating inner strength and simplicity, the Stoics taught that we could be content in solitude and focus on personal growth without needing constant interaction with others. For those sensitive to the energy around them, this Stoic approach provides a powerful antidote to the overwhelm that can arise in social situations. When we are content with our own company, we no longer need to rely on the external world to validate or support us. Our sense of peace becomes self-sustaining, and we become less vulnerable to the energies of others. Furthermore, the Stoics also embrace the concept of Stoic joy, finding joy in the simple things in life. They understood that true contentment comes not from external validation or experiences, but from an internal sense of peace. When sensitive to the energy of others, Focus on small moments that bring you joy and peace, such as a quiet walk, reading a book, or reflecting on your day. These moments allow you to reconnect with your inner energy and can help you recover from environments that drain you. While being sensitive to the energy of others may seem like a challenge, the Stoic approach offers valuable tools for managing this sensitivity and cultivating inner strength. By practicing detachment, mindfulness, and focusing on virtue, we can maintain our energy and stay centered in the face of external influences. The Stoics remind us that we have the power to choose how we respond to the energy around us, and that our inner peace does not have to be contingent on the external world. By embracing our sensitivity and learning to manage it with wisdom, we can navigate the world with grace, resilience, and tranquility. Conclusion. In the end, understanding why being around people can sometimes feel draining, overwhelming, or exhausting comes down to recognizing that it's not about disliking people, but about understanding our unique needs and how we respond to the world around us. As we explored the reasons behind these feelings, whether it's being an introvert, needing personal space, struggling with small talk, dealing with social anxiety, or being sensitive to the energy in a room, we see that these aren't flaws, but important aspects of who we are. The Stoic philosophy teaches us that we have the power to control how we respond to external circumstances. By embracing detachment, practicing mindfulness, and focusing on virtue, we can build the resilience to navigate even the most overwhelming situations. We can choose not to let the energy of others drain us, and instead, we can take control of our own internal state. It's not about avoiding social situations entirely, but about learning how to handle them in a way that honors who we are and protects our well-being. If you've been feeling overwhelmed in social settings or struggling to make sense of why these situations affect you, remember that you're not alone. The Stoic way encourages us to accept our nature, practice self-awareness, and take charge of our reactions. By doing so, we can create a life that's more balanced, fulfilling, and true to our authentic selves. Thank you so much for joining me in this exploration of why we sometimes prefer solitude over socializing. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Your support keeps me motivated to bring more content like this, and together, we can keep learning and growing. Stay tuned for the next topic where we'll dive even deeper into how Stoic principles can guide us toward living a more peaceful and purposeful life. Until then, take care and stay strong.